Well, hello there. Glad to see you. Glad you can make it. Well, I was just looking at the notes, and looks like we're very close to a particular point in the story. One of, I don't know how you would say it, either shock or wonder, depending how you look at it. But before we go on, let me get something to drink here. Vincent! Vincent!
Hang on, boss. I hope I have time to finish responding to all those YouTube comments. Yeah? What's up, boss?
Yes. Hi, Vincent. Thank you very much. Could you do me a huge favor? Could you get me a mug of mead, please? The tall mug. Yes. Tonight will be a interesting story. Anyways, where did we leave off? Oh, yes. Elren had just arrived back at Baldwin's farm, and he had mentioned that Tana and him had just stumbled on to where the Jurgoma were coming. And I believe he said they were looking for Talon.
Turning away from watching Byron, who's at the edge of the cornfield, Baldwin asks,
"How do they know Talon? What did you do to them?"
Chuckling, Talon replies,
Well, as much as I'd like to take credit, 'tis not me they seek.
No, they seek not the person, but the town. And in doing such means they seek revenge. So much so that 3 Jurgurmo come from some hell to bid their followers on a crusade. Some crusade. How much time do we have? Mind you, Jacob and my farm are on the outskirts, followed by Marcus's and the Smiths. That is, if those creatures are coming in a straight line. Yes, and with such determined thought, I do not think they will be easily diverted, let alone care for a scenic route versus a direct conclusion.
Aye, I agree, but perhaps we can still manage to buy ourselves some time.
How so?
You mentioned Jacob's farm, the place where you killed the creature.
Baldwin nods.
Well, as I mentioned before, they have a keener sense of sight and smell, such that they'll be inclined to stop and bear witness to their first Jurgurmo. Even though the blood is dried, the unworldly smell will still linger, and I'm sure one of their followers will be a ranger type. So, perhaps they'll try to determine the actions in the house as well as where the body was dragged off to.
Yes, good point. So, if we are there, what are you thinking? Somewhere between the 2 farms?
Aye, if we scrape some of the blood off the wood and drop bits of it along the trail here and there, we can guide them where we want. So instead of a direct line from Jacob's to here, we slightly bear off into a grove of trees, a hill, or a ravine. It's not perfect, but what time we have, it will have to do.
And why such spots?
Well, with Tana's help, along with the fellow druid, we can hopefully catch a few off guard and cut their numbers down.
If she gets back in time.
Well, while we wait for her, let us head to Jacob's, and I will call upon the druid.
With the 3 in agreement, they head back towards the house and barn.
Let me tell Sylvia. She needs to head towards Marcus's farm with Byron. Yeah, much safer. Less for you to worry on.
While nodding his head, Baldwin yells out for Byron, waving him back towards the house. As he climbs the front steps, Elrin heads to the barn, and Talon splits off, making bird sounds while holding his arms out. Within a minute, a blue jay lands, and watching from the steps, Baldwin sees Talon hand something to the bird, which it promptly eats. Then, followed by obvious words that he can see Talon speaking but can't hear. Then he raises his arms, and the bird flies off south.
Were you just talking to the bird?
Aye.
I want to talk to birds.
Byron, I need you to go into the house and pack some clothes. You're going to stay at Marcus's.
Really? Woohoo!
Looking on as Byron goes into the house, Talon adds,
With luck, the druid is not in Sanhara's trek and will be around for Blue Jay to find him.
Will he get here in time?
One can only hope.
and with that, Talon heads off to the barn. Taking the cue, Baldwin heads into the house and calmly explains to an emotional Sylvia what is going on, what is going to happen, and where Byron and she need to be. Needless to say, Sylvia is not happy. Not in her dilemma in running to Marcus's farm, but why Baldwin? Why does he have to do this?
Because of my actions at Jacob's farm. It was my hand that killed that creature, regardless of it being luck. All of this that is happening, all of this that befell us that night, It's all my doing. My actions have consequences. We just didn't know what they would be. So I need to see this through. If not try to protect you, at least everyone else in the hamlet.
Leaning into Baldwin's arms, crying, all he can do is stroke her hair and whisper words of love and promises of return. Seeing Byron peeking out from his bedroom, Baldwin motions for him into a family hug too, and there the three stand for a period of time before Talon's voice can be heard.
Come, Baldwin. We need to make use of the day.
Grabbing his borrowed sword from the mantle, he heads back out, stopping but for a brief moment to see his family one more time. Once outside, his horse is there along with Elrin and Talon on theirs.
How will Tana find us?
Smiling, Elrin replies,
Do you think I will let such a beautiful creature go from me for long periods of time without a way to talk? You do not know. You forget, I guess, that we are elves, yeah? Magic. I want nothing to do with it.
Laughing, Talon says,
Your loss.
shaking his head, Baldwin spurs his horse forward, and the three ride north to Jacob's farm. In short time, they arrive at the farm. With still some hours of sunlight left, they head towards the house. The last time Baldwin was here, it was dark, with the animals still in the barn. Now it was quiet, with only sounds of birds and insects. Fields, once lush with myriad of crops, now are overgrown with brown tips. And then there's the house. The house shutters are all closed, and it seems so much colder and darker despite the warmth of the sun. Heading up the stairs last, Elrin and Talon try the latch, but the door's locked. Elrin motions for Talon, and he steps aside. Not seeing what Elrin is doing, all Baldwin can hear is a and Elrin opens the door. Stale air escapes, and all take pause. Pushing the door all the way, the inside is empty. All that remains of the reminder of that night is the dry blood on the floor and beyond into Jacob's bedroom.
'Tis a shame Jacob's son didn't want this farm. It's an honest living.
I didn't know he had a son. Jacob never mentioned him.
Aye, they had a falling out years ago. Seemed his son wanted to be rich. Felt that the only way to do it was to live in Darwin.
Doing what?
Trading goods and becoming a goods trader, regardless of the questionable goods. Anyways, needless to say, this line of work was, in Jacob's mind, not quite honest. And you know you knew Jacob. He spoke his mind. And then this created that not speaking to each other.
Tana is coming.
Baldwin turns back, looking out to the dirt path leading up to the house, but he sees nothing.
Where is she? She rides, and she should be here soon.
Good. Let's scrape as much blood off the floor as we can. Even my ranger eyes can't tell whose blood is whose, so let's not take any chances.
Time passes as each scrape the floorboards, piling their blood shavings into a leather pouch Talon has. When done, Baldwin asks,
If Tana is coming, what about the druid?
At that moment, there is a knock on the door. All three turn to see a rather lanky fellow, dressed in clothes colored in an array of greens, browns, with a bit of gray and black thrown in.
Rufus! Thank ye. Your help will be of great benefit to us all.
Nodding, he motions for Talon to step out, and following after him, Elrin and Baldwin go out, but they instead head towards the barn with Elrin in the lead.
Let us see if there's anything we can still use that's in our barn.
Entering the barn, all they find are empty stalls. Even the storage above is bare.
Look all around. See if there's any pitchforks left up there. I will see what we can find down here, if anything.
Climbing up and starting at the front, Baldwin begins his search. And even though it is sunny outside, there are places of darkness up here, forcing him to squint and stoop, peeking into eaves. When he reaches the end, he climbs down and then heads up the other side. Scouring all around, fruitless of finding anything, he starts down the ladder, but then realizes there's a pitchfork hanging on the wall above the ladder. Climbing back up, he grabs it and tosses it down.
Found one. Good. I as well. I have an axe. though the blade seems a bit dull.
Great. So we can defend ourselves with pitchforks and swords?
No. The pitchforks we will use along the trail. They will be used as traps. Those points, they will be deadly.
Setting traps. Will they work?
I know not. But if what Talon implies is true, once they smell their blood, then their focus may change, as well as their pace. Maybe this forces the trail leader to rush and thereby not see the traps for what they are.
Isn't that one of the many skills a ranger has? That is, seeing what others cannot see in nature?
True enough, but with Tana's help, a bit of magic can hide something, even from the most skilled.
Taking the pitchforks and axe, the two head back to the house. At the same time, Talon is heading their way, with Tana alongside, and the two are speaking using their hands.
Is everything all right with the druid?
With Rufus? Aye. He just had concerns thinking the bird misspoke the enemy numbers. Alas, I convinced him the threat is real and the numbers are pretty big. Well, for a group of our size.
Where is he now?
He knows the Durgarmo, but he knows the Dark Elves even better. So off he's laying out the blood in a way that still keeps him coming our way, but perhaps in areas where they would not sense a trap.
Good. Let us be not too far behind them then. With these finds, along with Tana and the druid, we shall hopefully create some chaos amongst them.
Do you know what traps to set?
Some will be similar to a local trapper, using snares and pinches. We can probably set up a deadweight to fall too. Maybe use those pitchforks as daggers springing from a young sapling.
Then there are the pitfalls too.
Aye, the druids are fond of making those as well, but he can also create a wall of thorns, such that if you break a branch walking, it's going to spring right into you.
Gesturing with her hands, Tana adds, I can use my magic to hide our steps and the traps. And with that, the four climb onto the horses and look to catch up with the druid. When they do, they find Rufus creating a pitfall where local roots of nearby trees have been teased into deadly-looking spikes at the bottom. After this, they continue, setting springs, snares, and more pitfalls. It is already past dusk when they finish.
Rufus, will you be coming back to the farm with us?
Nodding his head, Rufus begins to speak, but then Talon interrupts him.
Your farm's not like the fields here or the groves of trees we've been through. It is sparse of true nature, things with deep roots. It's probably best to go back to the hamlet to prepare so that we can concentrate here and he can concentrate there.
Rufus gives Talon a look of unforgiving and determination.
Oi, I'm sorry, my old friend. You're all right. It's your choice, and making us stand here is as good as any.
Smiling back, Rufus just yells out to the horse, and off they gallop back to Baldwin's farm. It is completely dark with no moonlight when they get back to the farm. After tending to the horses in the stalls, Baldwin makes sure the barn is closed tight before they all head back to the house. And seeing it all dark, no one home, not even Jasper, Baldwin gets a feeling of foreboding. Shaking it off, he motions for all to come inside. And as Elrin and Tana have already been here before, they begin to get food prepared, while Baldwin starts a fire and Talon grabs bowls and mugs. There is a silence, an unspoken mood of inner searching, a questioning of one's mettle, a wondering of personal merits, if one's life as a whole is good enough to pass to a higher realm given all that it has been. As each grab a bowl of soup along with a mug of mead, they toast in silence, for no words need to be spoken. They all know what needs to be done, to save those who know not what lurks in the darkness, let alone what deep bowels of the land produces. And so the evening goes, each contemplating their own life scale, hoping it tips in the favor of their own god. And when sleep cannot be kept at bay any longer, bedrolls are laid out, and the fire is stoked one last time. When Baldwin awakes, he can hear movement in the kitchen, but no talking. Getting dressed, he heads to check in on everyone and finds the same air of solemnness lingering. Elrin and Tana are finishing up making some morning bread along with some pan-cooked meat, neither saying a word, not even with their hands. Talon is smoking a pipe, while sitting in a chair facing the fireplace, its flames crackling up into the chimney. And Rufus, he is sitting on the front porch, with squirrels and a chipmunk and birds, lots of birds, all around if not on him. Grabbing a stool, Baldwin places it in front of the fireplace next to Talon.
So, when should we expect them?
Tana believes by this evening, though one can hope we've slowed them down some with the traps.
If not killed a few.
As breakfast is served, again silence is heard. It is not till the last plate is washed and put away till someone speaks.
Perhaps some sparring to keep their body loose and their mind nimble.
Aye, I could use a bit of release myself.
And so it was, the morning turning into afternoon, and then evening, each taking turns against one another, with Elrin giving suggestions on a swing or a particular parry. And as they mutually agree to stop and head in for the evening, Baldwin asks,
Shall we bother with a meal? Why would you not? I, for one, would rather have a happy stomach versus wondering when my next meal would be.
With nervous laughs, each fell into a role held the prior night. And soon thereafter a fire is roaring and food is on the table. Unlike the previous evening, this one has idle chatter, some bantering, and the occasional laugh. As the night wears on, it becomes obvious that no one is going to sleep, so Rufus gets up and builds up the fire. With nothing else to say, Baldwin pours the last of the mead into everyone's cup. Toasting, they each take a gulp and then stare into the fire, letting its dance entertain them, thus keeping at bay any unwanted thoughts.
Again? How many did you say?
Tanner replies, "A score, not including the 3 creatures." Baldwin has the elven blade in his hand, though he doesn't remember grabbing for it. He looks at it, wondering how this one blade will save him against 3 Juragurmos. His hand begins to shake. Switching the blade to his left hand, that hand begins to shake as well. Sighing, he switches it back to his right. Then Tana taps him. Giving her his full attention, he sees her raise her right hand and place it over his heart, while small sounds trickle out of her mouth, and then a warmth of surety fills him. Instantly, his hand stops shaking.
Be ready.
A stillness follows for what seems like forever, when suddenly the door opens, sending wooden splinters of every size and shape everywhere. Luckily, no one is hurt. Well, except for Rufus, who gets a slight scratch under his left eye. Within moments, dark elves enter, and a fight for survival begins. Clashing of swords ring aloud, and Baldwin is soon pressed by 2 elves. Using Jacob's knife as a parrying dagger and the elven blade, he can only defend, deflecting each thrust and slash. As he blocks a thrust aimed for his stomach, that same dark elf buckles down to one knee, and there behind him, Elrin stands, who then slashes the back of the neck, killing the dark elf. Yelling in a voice, Elrin says,
Aim for their legs. It will slow their attack, giving you time against another. Then you can come back and finish the task.
and with that, Elrin spins away, while Tana spins at the same time, her back against his. It's a dance of love. It's a dance of trust, as each of their blades connect with the enemy, taking their lives. And it's only by sheer luck that Baldwin's dagger blocks a slash coming in on his left. The elf Elrin killed is replaced with another, and they all have a sinister look, as if each were made of the same god hand. It was disturbing and yet funny at the same time. Baldwin laughs. He can't control it, and the 2 elves each hesitate for a moment, but that's all it takes for Baldwin. Using the knife, he crouches low, slashing deep the thigh of the elf on his left, and then parries the right elf's blade away, and then allowing him to stab it into its chest. With the elf on his left down on one knee, blood pouring out of its wound, Baldwin makes quick work, swinging his elven sword across and taking the creature's head off. He can only get 2 deep breaths in before 2 more dark elves attack, but at least he can see everyone still standing and fighting. Even Rufus is swinging, using a fire log that somehow has been transformed into a wooden club with wooden spikes. Dealing with his 2 new enemies, Baldwin again is on the defense, and they are pressing their attack. Stepping backwards, just barely missing a stab at his chest, Baldwin almost stumbles over a stool. Using his battle senses, Baldwin hooks his left foot under it and then kicks it up into the left attacker. The elf blocks, slashing at the stool, shattering it. The elf to his right tries to stab at that moment, but, spinning his body right, Baldwin gets in on the inside of the elf's blade, and using Jacob's blade, parries the elf's attack, whereupon he turns the knife backwards and stabs the elf in the heart, and at the same time backswings his sword low across the other elf's midsection, opening him up and letting the creature's innards spill out. Completing the spin, Baldwin refaces back into the frenzy of battle. Each of his compatriots are still up. Dead elves lie about, but there is still a dozen standing. Taking a deep breath and stepping forward to take advantage of the attacks, Baldwin finds his footing slipping. All the blood is making for treacherous footwork, and before he can try to regain his balance, both feet fly out from underneath him. The fall backwards seems to slow, as if time itself is stopping. He sees Talon slide across the kitchen table, slashing across one elf, and throwing a dagger into an eye of another. Tana and Elrin move with grace as Elrin bends forward low to slash, while Tana spins over his back, using the tip of her blade to slash the throat of a surprised dark elf. Rufus, using his robe, entangles one elf's blade, while his spiked club catches another elf in the head, dropping him. And then Baldwin is falling, hard on his back, the air escaping him, and his head connecting with a loud crack on the bloody floor. Spots appear in his eyes. As he tries to regain his breath, his vision narrows, darkness pressing in on all sides. And then, blackness overtakes him.
Okay, so that is where we're going to stop the story today. I have an appointment, but rest assured we will finish and get to the next part of the story. I don't want to leave you hanging, and I know that it seems to be in a precarious position. That is where Baldwin is. But if you know him, somehow, I don't know. Things tend to happen. Anyways, thank you for coming. Great to see you. Until next time, be safe.